What's going on, everybody? Jorge Aquino coming to you live and direct. It's Tormenting Tarmac. It's the podcast where the enthusiast never dies. You find us recording on a Tuesday evening, on a beautiful Tuesday evening out here on the west end of Phoenix and Bird City. We're in Surprise, of course. It's July the 22nd. The monsoon hasn't hit as much as I'd like for it to, but gosh darn it, does it actually feel nice out there? It's great. That being said, again, you're not here for the meteorology reports, but what you are here for is for excellent conversation. I'm very happy because this is the 151st episode of Tormenting Tarmac. We went through this entire run of a celebration to get up to 150, and we did it. And now it's business as usual, and we carry on. And we'll see 200 very, very soon. My guest this evening happens to be an individual who I deeply admire, who does what I do, but does it even better, and has been doing it for quite a long time and has been repping this community in this city in a really positive way, that being Jhae Pfenning of the Hard Parking Podcast. My friend, welcome to Tormenting Tarmac. It is an absolute treat and a half to have you, man.
All right, thank you very much for having me on. That was an amazing opening, by the way.
I appreciate you, bro. I'll try, man.
Yeah, this it's not easy, and I'll be honest with you. A lot of times when I'm doing this, when I'm on that end of the stick, I will
Mm-hmm.
mess up. But that's where
Oh,
editing comes. I will mess up
exactly.
90% of the time.
I
Great
do my
job. Yeah,
best.
and
Thank you. Thank you. It
it's a
means a
little
lot coming
humid.
from you.
It's a little humid and nasty out there, but if you like it, that's good. It smells like rain. So,
It does smell like rain. I
I
just wish it would actually hit with the rain. You know what I'm saying?
me too, because we have a new HOA management and we kind of kicked the old one out. And today in the mail, I got two letters. They could have put with each one with its own citation. I'm like, you guys could have saved a tree and put it on one. One of them is your grass is dead or dying. It's like, yeah, thanks. I'm already
What you telling
insecure about my grass. Yeah. I said, that's like saying, excuse me, sir, did you know that you've got duct tape all over your car and you're missing a bumper? No, I didn't know that. Thank you very much.
Facts. It's the best. Like, the other day we went ahead and did our front yard, and then, like, because of the weather, it keeps on coming back up. And then the HOA will come around. It's like, motherfucker, why don't you come when it's been done? Why do you have to come back when all of a sudden the first weed starts to come back up? And it's like, boom, $50 fine. I'm like, you can take your fine and you can shove it up your ass, man. Like, don't come at me like that. It's very frustrating. And I feel your pain. I've had beefs with HOAs. I don't know, man, for like probably 8 years, Jay. It's infuriating and I feel you. And oh, God. And the last thing I need is for anybody to tell me that, oh, yeah, you got duct tape on for your car. I know.
Oh, I didn't know that. Where?
Yeah.
I there I feel like HOAs are a necessary evil.
Sure.
Because we've gone through neighborhoods and you look and you're like, God, dog, I would
Yeah.
not like to live next to this person because the grass is up to your knee and they got six
Mm-hmm.
broken down cars. And someone could say, who cares? It's their house. Yeah, but it's my subdivision. I kind of like it. You're bringing
Yeah.
down the property value. But at the same time, the opposite end of that is, hey, you got weeds all over your yard, and you might have one weed because heaven forbid you've been gone for 2.5 weeks, like I just was.
Yep.
I put down fertilizer before I left. Obviously, it didn't take. My yard is yellow. There's some green in there because it's probably weeds. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. I hear you. But um my let me tell you something, Jay. We
Tell me.
actually we had an opportunity right now to go ahead and chat for 15 minutes before we even hit record. I've been following you for a long time. I want to give credit to my boy AJ Shipatovsky because he put me onto you. Because I'd heard your
AJ,
name. Yeah, AJ's the man. Love him. He's an
he's cool.
absolute just sweetheart and a half and a fantastic photographer on top of that. But more so, he's just a great individual. And
Hmm.
like a couple of years ago, he was like, "Hey man, you need to go ahead and like do something with Jay." And I was like, shit, man. Okay, cool. And I found your stuff and I was like, oh, this dude is like the Godfather. Like I'm with this.
Hmm.
I rock with this, right? And this episode to me has been a long time coming. Um, and it's cool because you and I both do similar things, but we also do them very, very differently and
Yep.
whatnot. But I think that at the end of the day, we have done a very good job over these last few years of being able to go ahead and have a platform for people to go ahead and just you know share their love for the culture, and in particular not just you for the culture but current events, and I love what you do with your show, and I want to talk about that. But I really want to get to the chance to know you because I finally got a chance to meet you for the first time. I think we went to that event over at the Vault, Racing for
Yeah.
Reese. I'll shout
Yep.
out to Kingsley, shout out to the Vault of Scottsdale and Ron Evans and everybody who went ahead and put that on. It was amazing. Joe Adrift, Giovanni Garlardo, so many people were involved in that. And I remember, I saw our boy Josh Benjamin, AMG Josh's Evo right in front. I was like, oh, of course, that's Josh's car. And I saw him, went to say what's up. And then right there, you're there. I'm like, oh my God, Jay. And you're like, Jorge, it's finally. And that was a moment 2 years in the making right there, dude.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And I'm so happy that we finally get a chance to do this now. And I get a chance to go ahead and get to know you better as not just a podcaster, but as a dude who is like so deeply ingrained into the culture. Like, kind of take me back a little bit because you're obviously deep. For anybody who doesn't know, like, you're heavily deep into JDM. Like, that's your calling. I'm heavily deep into JDM. That's, 2001, man, I walk out of Jurassic Park 3 thinking I'm super really sad over that shitty ass movie. And I get introduced into Paul Walker and Vin Diesel in the next theater over. And voila, here we are. You know what I'm saying? How was it for you? How long have you been into the game? And how did it all start for you?
You know, I guess like not like everyone, but like most of us, we fell in love with cars at a young age. No one knows why. No one knows the psychology of why you have a toy car in front of a child, honestly, whether male or female.
Mm-hmm.
It's at some point they say, you play with this, or you play with that, instead of letting kids find their own way. And I played with everything when I was a kid. Anything that looked like it was able to be played with, I played with it.
Yeah.
But at some point, you just like kids know when they see something they like, put it that way. And fast forward, and then we'll go right back. It's like with my old NSX, I was wrapped a certain way based off of my favorite cartoon when I was a kid, and my favorite car that I wanted for 20 years that I finally got. And you go to some of these car meets and these car shows, and the thing is you park your car and then you stand just far enough away to where you don't have to answer questions, but to where you can hear people talk. That's like a
Yep.
tactic
Yep.
because we don't want to have these hour-long conversations, but at the same time, we want to be available to answer questions. This is a weird thing. It's just it's hard to like I know, and all your guests, past and future know. But the kids always pick the coolest cars.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I was a kid, I liked anything that moved. I had a neighbor who, wrote for the Dallas Morning News. I grew up in Texas, and every week he'd come home with a different car.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be like a road and track editor. I wanted to drive a car and write about it. Who didn't want to do that?
Yep.
I don't do any of that
Absolutely.
shit now.
Yep. I still want
But
to do it.
I would love to do it, but when I got into middle school, the first poster on my wall was a Vector W2, which is a
Mm.
prototype, and then eventually a Vector W8. About 3 years ago, I was fortunate enough to go up to Michigan and get a ride, go up to this guy's house and get a ride in the very first one. They
Wow.
only made 17 of them, maybe
That's
24, but I want to say 17 of them.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Uh, yeah, amazing car. But it wasn't until I was in high school. It was, I want to say 1992-ish, maybe. And the buddies, there's nothing kids do in high school but just goof around. Maybe get in a car, try to stay out of trouble. We'd go to the local putt-putt place in the next city over. There's a black NSX, license plate, I Nukem. He worked for the software company that makes Duke Nukem.
Oh,
And we all
shit.
just fell in love with the car at the same time.
Oh,
And at that point, everybody in the group loves the car. So everyone talks about the car all the time. And it just becomes like this obsession of the group. Remember how it is when you're in your friend groups, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
oh, everybody wants the Mongoose or the Redline bike. And individually, none of you would even know what the hell it is, except for the one guy who's into bikes. And the cars is kind of the same deal.
Yep.
And from that, they just kind of built an obsession for the NSX. And quite honestly, also the Porsche. I was a big Porsche guy too. And I still like Porsches. I'd
Mm-hmm.
be crazy not to. But my dream Porsche was a 993. Well, first it was the 992 Bad Boys Porsche before even Bad Boys,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
the 964s. Yes.
the 964s. Yep. Thank you. And then the 993s. And I went and sat in a Porsche at a dealership, and it just didn't really feel right.
Mhm.
I went and sat in an NSX at the dealership, and it felt perfect.
Yeah.
And so my first car was actually a clapped out. It wasn't clapped out. It was a 1976 four-door Cutlass Supreme that I got from my grandmother who passed, kicked the bucket. So maybe she clapped out. And you know, all my homies they loved that car, but it was
Yeah.
just never me.
Yeah.
So in 1998, I bought a brand new Acura Integra GSR. So that was my first dip into Acura, the
It's
baby
fire.
NSX.
Yep.
And I mean, people listening to this are going to say, no, the baby NSX is a Type R.
Mhm.
But for me at that age,
98, that wasn't the case.
right? I mean, I didn't care about a Type R. I went to the dealership and I'm like, what is this car? It doesn't have an AC. It doesn't have this. It costs more. It only comes
Mhm.
in like off white, your championship white, obviously, but
Yeah.
off white. No, let me get this black one with the leather interior and the CD changer. All the normal
Yeah.
stuff the
Hmm.
kids. And it's just, I think for me, going to the Acura dealership because I'm a huge Acura advocate. I love all cars,
Right.
but Susan Tablebin was my service advisor, and I'm friends with her to this day on Facebook. But they treated me, and all dealerships aren't like that these days. I know, I understand that, but they treated me as if I bought an NSX. Every single person there, and there was an NSX in the parking in the service bay. You can look down, and Susan's like, "Hey, do you want to drive it?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. I didn't. I never took her up on that." But just the fact that I just felt they just made you feel like you're important. And an Acura Integra is the entry level Acura. Like
Hmm.
that is literally the least expensive Acura for the luxury brand back then. It may still be the case. I don't know. But so my love for Acura and my chasing the NSX, my dream car, just kind of naturally came together. And so that just became my obsession over the next 20 years. So I bought all the Road and Track magazines, Road and Track's Exotic Cars Quarterly, DuPont Registry. Everything was trying to find everything NSX related or Vector related because I still
Hmm.
madly love that car. That's still my ultimate dream car outside
Is
of
that
the
still
obvious
like,
McLaren.
yeah? Is that like you get the Mega Millions? Are you buying a Vector, bro?
Yeah, but fortunately, I'm in a Vector group. And so
Okay.
I'm like 2 degrees of separation away from owners.
Fair
But
enough. Okay.
that's one of the cars where it's unobtainium because there's so few and someone has to be willing to sell it. Now everything has a price.
Sure.
I wouldn't throw 20 million at one, knowing that I think the most expensive one went for at Barrett Jackson here, maybe, I don't know, 1 point something, which set a record at the time.
Yeah.
But if I had FU money, I would probably offer somebody a cool 4 or 5. Now, having ridden in one, it's definitely a car that you loved as a kid and it looks great on the wall,
Hmm.
but it's a super weird car. I want to say 3-speed automatic, maybe
An
4 at best.
Oldsmobile and transmission, is it not?
I don't remember. I know it's very bespoke, the car itself, but how you put it together, kind of like a DTM, who knows, right?
Right.
Um, but that just started the obsession. And I kind of like anything that moves. I
Hmm.
love a lot of muscle cars.
Right.
I love different Japanese cars. Sometimes watching the movies, not Fast and Furious aside.
Mhm.
You watch Jackie Chan, you watch Thunderbolt, and he's whipping around and a little Evo and stuff, and that becomes a
Yeah.
cool car because number one, at the time they weren't here. Watching Speed Vision and watching the rally cars drift around the dirt, almost hit people with no guardrails. It just became like an obsession. And of course, Gran Turismo.
Of course.
In 98, 99, I think.
Yep.
Um, the car that introduced the game that introduced most cars to the rest of the world. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's kind of my obsession of cars. And since then, it's just finally get my NSX in 2012 and not really looking back.
That's you're living the dream for a lot of people that are going to be listening to this podcast. You're living the dream for a lot of people that listen to yours, bro, because like that's what we want to achieve, like in a materialistic sense, right? Like
Yeah,
we
right.
want to be able to go ahead and do well in life. We have our home, we are taking, our families are good, they're Gucci, they're all taken care of, our kids are being raised right. If you got kids, your spouse actually tolerates
Man, I
you and
got
loves you.
grandkids, dude.
Hey, yo, respect. Okay, like that's awesome, dude. Like, see, man, if you guys see Jay, you don't know that he's older than what he is. Like that's
Right.
crazy, man. Like respect. But you did it the right way. You've done things the right way, and Also, I can't stress enough how great of a car the NSX is. As a fellow JDM enthusiast, my second ever car, my first sports car, was a 1994 Nissan 300ZX. It was a Z32. Mine was not the twin turbo; it was NA.
That's still
I
your
got
love to this day, is it not?
I adore that car, Jay. Like,
Yep.
still to this day, listen, man, let me tell you something. My understanding is right hand drive automatics, twin turbos, they're not that expensive. And it's like, maybe that's just the move. And I forget about getting a 5 speed and just enjoy an automatic. Well, like, maybe that's the move. But, I remember, my first car was a Honda Accord. Actually, it was a 1990 Honda Accord. My mom bought it for me as a graduation gift from high school. She said, "Jorge, if you find my a car that's $1,000 or less, I will buy it for you as your graduation gift." Jay, took me 24 hours. Like, easiest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I'm like, done. I bought it from my one of my good friends to this day, from his dad. He was selling it. It's $1,000. No AC in Tucson. I didn't care. Still,
Mhm.
I own that
Sure.
car for a year. Never put AC in it. I did put a sound system in it because I'm an idiot. And that's
That's
what
what
we,
people did.
we
That's what,
did,
yeah, that's what we
honestly.
did.
And and
Yep.
and I and I put so many miles on it, and then I found. So I was going to community college, and I see. So this would have been like 08, 09. So this was during the time when Nissan thought to themselves, "Hey, we're gonna go ahead and make the Altima cool, and we're gonna make the Altima SER." You remember that, right?
Hmm.
And for anybody who doesn't know what the Ultima SER is, basically they put 20s on it, and then even though it had the same V6 as the Maxima and of course the 350Z, they didn't detune it for the Ultima, so it basically had 350Z horsepower. So it was like 285, 290 horsepower. It was just a front wheel drive 350Z with four doors, and you got a 6 speed manual, or you could have the 5 speed automatic. You remember? And I remember seeing one, and I was like, "Oh, damn, that's a hot ass Altima." This was prior to us knowing that Altima drivers these days suck at life. Respectfully to anybody, to anybody who's an Altima driver, I mean no disrespect, but that car was cool, and I wanted to go ahead and check it out. So I went to my local Nissan dealership in Tucson, Thoroughbred Nissan, and I was like looking at one, knowing the fact that it was completely out of my budget because I think at the time it was like a $25,000 car, and I'm like 19,
Sure.
I can't finance that. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I go to the used lot, and then I find this dark green 300ZX just chilling in the lot. And I was like, "Oh my god, like that might be one of the best looking cars I've ever seen in my entire life." And
Hmm.
I convinced my mom to co-sign with me. She didn't put a down payment. My car was a down payment, but she co-signed with me, and I appreciate that to this day. And I bought it like a day and a half later, bro. And I didn't look
Awesome.
back. It was probably a horrific financial decision, but also an incredible decision because it's really what I already loved cars for so many years, but that was what really opened my eyes to just the culture and whatnot. And honestly, to this day, the 300ZX Z32 is still. I'm not being biased when I say this. I really mean it. I still think it's the hierarchy in terms of best looking sports cars that came out of Japan in those early 90s and whatnot, alongside with the NSX and alongside the Mark IV Supra. And obviously, so that was 94. So R33s would have been,
DFD.
yeah. And the RX-7s, everything. Like,
Yep.
that was just a time to be a fan of Japanese domestic market where we were just like, not only are they fantastic looking cars, but damn, can they drive well? Damn, do they make good power with the power plants that they have, and whatnot? And
They're
it was cool, man.
they're not expensive. Not everybody has one,
Yep,
and they were all decently equipped for what you can get them for. It was
one
almost like
hundred
a
percent.
sports luxury car.
Yeah, yeah. I
Or you
mean,
can get the hot Fox body Mustang, which were plenty nice. I had friends that had them in high school, but the interior just smelled funky and a lot of plastic you can knock on. But
yeah,
it's just a significant build quality difference. All the cars that you
absolutely.
named.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. You talk about the interior quality of a 300ZX. I've sat in NSXs, I've sat in RX-7s, and for the time, it wasn't just the interior quality, Jay, but also just like visual cues of how everything was laid out around you. Like I'll never forget like the rotary dial to turn on my headlights in my Z, which was like on the it would
Hmm.
have been on the left hand side of my steering wheel, and then on the right hand side would have been the AC, and it was like a rotary dial too, and everything was just like towards me. Um,
Yeah.
it was just cool, man. I was like, yo, y'all were cooking this up in the 90s, like respect. It was so cool. I even remember seeing what would have been, I think, a 92 or a 93 NSX that had 100,000 miles on it. And it was like, I think it was like 10 grand. This would have been like an '09. And
I was going to ask when. Yeah, it sounds like it would have been 10, 15, 23 tops.
it was
That's what
I
the
should have
market
bought it.
was in.
Honestly, I should have bought it. I should have traded in my Z and bought that instead. It was also a 4-speed automatic, but it was black if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was a black NSX. It was fucking fire, bro. Just to this day, the NSX is you can talk about the whole Ayrton Senna and with the Honda McLaren thing and back that wasn't what I thought about. Like I didn't even know about that really. I just saw
Yeah, same.
this sleek mid-engine Japanese car when the only other mid-engine Japanese car that you could go ahead and buy at the time was an MR2. And respectfully, MR2s are cool. They're not NSXs.
They're not
Like,
it. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it looked like a supercar. It was so
Yeah,
cool, man.
it pushed other manufacturers to do better.
Mm-hmm.
It put for it hey, Ferrari go back and come out with the 355 to success the 348. It had Porsche kind of sitting back and taking a look and reevaluating.
Yeah.
You know, um, Lotus, Corvette, all these different manufacturers, because of what you could get in the quality and performance. It wasn't the fastest car, even 270 when it came out, 290 when it ended. But it was price competitive. It was sexy. Not everybody had it. The build
Mm-hmm.
quality was there, and it just pushed the other manufacturers to be more. And for that, I think its place in history is forever going to be cemented. Obviously, now there's cars that are nicer, cleaner, faster, quicker. You can get a brand new Toyota Camry that could probably outdo a first gen NSX in almost any way, shape, or form. And that's going to be a controversial, but I'm
It's
pretty
true.
sure that's right. But I think that people will still always respect it. I mean, we could pull up to an old 308 Ferrari and you're going to blow its doors off in your Infinity SUV, but you don't care because that's a badass car.
Absolutely.
So it's starting to get to that level. I mean, or it's been at that level for a while, but I think for you and your passion for the 300ZX, I'm still waiting for those to really be appreciated and take off because they're the next one.
Yep.
And, I mean, like Leb's, here he's had a beautiful one as long as I can remember. And every once in a while you'll see one it's clean and you're like, wow, the thing is awesome. I
Yeah.
remember back in the street races days when I lived in Dallas, we're talking circa 97, 98. Um, there was a 300ZX there that was just sorted and it was just taking everybody. Same thing with the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. They had that
Yes.
thing sorted and it was just ripping. It weighs a ton. Who cares? It was ripping everybody in half.
Yeah. That car had all wheel steer, if I'm not mistaken, back in like the early in the mid '90s. I think it was like chain driven. Pretty sure R33 or R34 Skylines had all wheels. Like the tech,
Honda
it's
Prelude as well.
Honda Prelude. I just put up the story the other day that the drive showed, and you could go ahead and see the rear wheels just go ahead and move right to left. And it's so funny because like we make this big deal now, like GT3s, which I love a GT3. Who doesn't, right?
Right,
But I love a
exactly.
GT3, and like it's got rear wheel steer. An A12 GTS or a regular A12 Ferrari has rear wheel steer, and all the big
Yeah, I
Lambos
didn't even know
too.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, but we see that and you're like, oh man, well, that's a $500,000, 812. Like it should have rear wheel steer. It's like, yeah, but the Japanese were doing that 30 years ago in their basic sports cars. Like Chevrolet, I don't think Chevrolet went ahead and put rear wheel steer in a Corvette until
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I don't think they did. Yeah. And it was
Yeah, I don't
amazing.
know. I don't think so. But even my Infinity, which is by trade Nissan, um, the one I just sold, my FX50S has rear wheel.
Just the technology was out of this world, and
Yeah,
it was amazing. I want to ask you because like how long before because how long have you had your first gen NSX? Because you are blessed to have both first gen as well as new gen.
True
Right?
second gen, yeah.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people, even in the NSX world, consider they go, "Do you have first gen or second gen?" They're referring to the 91 to '05.
right.
But technically, you're talking first gen and facelift
Yeah,
of the first gen, really, at the end of the day. I had that for 9 years. And, hearing you tell your story about getting your 300ZX, at the dealership, you look over and there it is. It made me think back to how badly I wanted the NSX. I had dreams. Sorry, I had literally dreams about the car. And the car was never right in the dreams. One time I was driving a four-door one. I think I was in Miami, and it had four spare NSX wheels on it too. Like they were all different colored, right? But just none of that shit ever made sense.
yeah,
But the things that I wanted to do to the car over the year, I'm kind of glad I didn't get it until I got it. Because I'm like, geez, I would have chopped the top and made it like convertible.
yeah.
I would have had flaky paint on it. I would have had whatever was popular, the gold package at the time, because I'm a 90s kid, um, gold tri-spoke Anteras, and then like looking back, it's like, oh, damn,
We
but
made some horrid decisions, my dude. Horrid decisions back in the day.
yeah, well, it's like, God, I'm sure glad I didn't have the cars I wanted. I would have
Yeah.
fucked them up, for real. Uh, I would have clown showed them,
Yeah.
but it still would have been my car, right? But
Right.
just still looking back. But yeah, I got that thing in August of 2012,
Okay.
and I made $30,000 a year all the time, and I finally got a job where I was making some money, and I was like, hey, now I could probably afford an NSX. And so I went to NSX Prime, which is where everyone used to go. And NSXPrime.com is still active, but most of us in the NSX world know each other from Prime, the forum days. And I wrote down 5 NSXs that I was targeting, anywhere from the price of like 38 to 70 at the top. It would have been a stretch.
Yeah.
Um, and I reached out
Wow,
to the
you
guy,
were
and
still looking at $70,000 NSXs in 2012. That's
yeah, I was making some money, but that was kind of
no, no, no,
on
not
the
not
like,
not not in regards to you, Jay, but I'm just the fact that it had already climbed up
oh,
to a seventy thousand
sure,
dollar
yeah,
NSX back in 2012. Because like you can't even buy a $70,000 like you'll find a clapped ish NSX at 70 grand right now, but back in 2012, that was pricey back then. Holy smokies! I didn't realize
it
they were
was.
that high.
They never really dropped. I mean, they
Yeah.
dropped, during 2008, 2009, like everything
Mhm.
else. And then from that point, 2011 and a half, 12, they started going right back up
You started
again.
working right up. Okay, I got you.
Um, and so if you wanted to get one so your $70,000 NSX would have been like a 99, 2002, 2005 car, right? So it's
Super
only
low
7 years
mile.
removed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be one of the rare black with the red interior.
Mhm.
They only had like 20 something of those. It could be one of the super rare NA2 coupes that they produced from 97 to I think 2001. There's only a handful of those out there, the
Yeah.
best of both worlds. And so I was kind of looking at everything, high mileage, low 90 versions. But I always wanted like an NA2,
Mhm.
which is the 3.2 liter, 290, six-speed. A lot of people say it's the year. They're like, oh, 97, 2005 is NA2. No, NA2, you can get an NA1 if it's an automatic
Mhm.
all years. So that's kind of one of those weird little things. And most NSX guys don't even know that either. So I better know that I'm the president of the club. But
I feel it.
I reached out to a guy and I was like, hey, he had kind of a shitty photos listed. It looked like it was at an apartment complex, kind of 4x4, had T37s on there, but it hadn't been lowered. And it's the type of listing that's easy to blow past.
Mhm.
And I looked at the mod list and I go, I want something that I can do some work on. I don't want to buy someone else's complete build, but it'd be
Right.
nice if the suspension was already done and some of the other little things, the starter kits, I guess we can call it, right? Um, and I negotiated, picked it up for 42. I flew a red-eye flight from Seattle, where I was working at the time, to Minneapolis, picked up the car on like 2 hours of sleep, and driving it from Minneapolis to Milwaukee, where my wife was going to meet me on a ferry, or she met me on a ferry coming over from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Uh, it was great at first. Everyone's like, yeah, cool. But eventually you get real tired and you start
Yep.
hallucinating and having conversations with people that aren't there.
Yep. I
We've
know
all
that
been those
story
road
way too well,
trips.
my dude. Yep.
Yeah, you're like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, shit, what am I doing? Like literally one eye must be closed and one eye must be
Yep.
open.
Hmm.
Um, but I picked my wife up from the ferry and she said, this is it. This is the car. So I was showing her a million pictures, but
Right.
the NSX is one of those cars that just looks better in person.
Absolutely.
No matter how good it looks in the photo, it looks even better in person. And I said, yeah. We went to get gas. I handed her the keys. I taught her how to drive a stick before that, and I passed out. And then I woke up in Green Bay, which is where we were staying, and we did this nice road trip. Went to the winery with a new car, in northern
Nice.
Michigan. Uh, and then yeah, that was Berlina black camel interior T37s. Had some of the fixed lights was already done by the previous owner.
Hmm.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day over coffee, and he was talking about my buddy's car. And he goes, yeah, but that car isn't it a 95? I go, yeah, it's a 95. He goes, yeah, but he's got the fixed lights on there. It should be pop-ups. I go, yeah, but um, back in 2011, 12, everybody with pop-ups was buying the fixed lights and doing the conversion because it's just an OEM swap essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and so I would have done that too.
Eventually.
So it was already done for me.
Hmm.
And so to me that was a perfect car, but it's weird. I enjoyed it in Michigan, and once I moved here to Arizona, it's not about speed, it's not about all that stuff. But we used to go on these big cruises, and the car never felt as normalized and slow on these long Arizona highways and the 17 going up to Sedona. And I'm just like, man, I gotta put some more speed in this thing.
Show.
I gotta do something. And then I wanted to start competing in car shows.
Hmm.
One of the things about the NSX that I think people don't understand, it's one of those middle cars in a sense where you can pull up to the Friday night car meet and people respect it. The more stock it is, the more it's not the same now,
Right.
I think, because the car is just taking on an aura of its own. But it was more, long story short, it felt more like a cars and coffee NSX, not a car show NSX.
Fair.
And, I started competing in car shows and doing different things. And I did the interior swap. I bought OEM red seats from one of the 23 that existed that was made, and just had the car black with red interior and different wheels. It was looking pretty posh. And then when I did the SEMA journey, that's when things kind of changed a little bit for the car. Um, but yeah, I mean, I had the car for 9 years. I did everything to it. Why did I sell it? The Type S was coming out, and I
Hmm.
was ready to move on to something else.
Right.
Um, it's one of those cars where it's like, if I sell it, what would I get? And
Right.
people listening or watching is like, well, you can get a Cayman Porsche, you can get this, you can get that. Yeah, if you're just looking for something, but you have to have a passion in what it is you're spending your money in. If you just don't, if you're not one of these people that can buy cars every 5 minutes, and we both
Right.
know those people,
Hmm.
more power to them. Really cool. Wish I could be that guy. I'm not. So I have to be very selective on what I
I
get, right?
completely agree.
It's like, man, that would be nice. Like, no hate. That's awesome, dude. But I kind of got to figure out what I'm doing over here. But when the Type S was announced, because the new NSX wasn't, I've always wanted one. It'd be nice to have both. It still
Hmm.
would be nice to have both. It'd be nice to have my old car in the garage still. But it took something special like the Type S to come out.
Yeah, the
And
Type S. I feel, not to interrupt you, Jay, but like I remember when the Type S came out. That was that was what the people who were fans of the second generation felt like the NSX second gen should have been like from the very beginning. Like
most
when
people,
it
yeah,
right when it came out, because what was the first year of the second gen? Is it 2016?
17.
17, right? And
Yep.
a lot of people like that car. They do, but like the Type S is like perfect or perfected of that version and
Right.
whatnot. And it's funny, you've now owned one now for a few years, and to this day, I first of all, I think the NSX is a very dope car. I will say, I will completely admit, and I'm curious to go ahead and get your thoughts. When that car first came out in 2017, being such an enormous fan of the regular NE1s and the NE2s and whatnot, when you saw that and you were like, oh, okay, it's going to be all-wheel drive. It's also going to go ahead and have a hybrid system. It's going to have a 9-speed dual clutch and stuff like that. Like, how did you feel about that car when it first came out compared to you having been such a big fan of the OG?
I always liked it. I
Okay.
went because it's new, it's on brand. Um, I went through phases with it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I had to have it, then I didn't really want it, and then I kind of felt like I had to have it, then I didn't really want it, which is why it took me so long to actually
Pull the
sell my
trigger.
car and get one.
Yeah.
Um, but I've having been around the scene through the club, the NSX club, and being fortunate enough to not only meet but become friends with Acura brass
Mm-hmm.
and people that like Peter Cunningham that I used to watch on Speed Vision, and now he's a really good friend of mine.
Nice.
Just kind of having that access and being around those people, you get kind of, I guess, kind of a behind the scenes look at what really goes into these things.
Yeah.
I at one of the big NSX events, I met the interior designer Michael Cow, and he was also a partner on my SEMA build project. He has ID 3D printing, which is a huge 3D printing company, but he was kind of a startup at the time. And I was like, hey, kind of designing this thing, don't have a lot of money. And he's like, all right, well, uh, we don't have time to design them. You have to design them, but we'll print them for you for free. So I had to learn how to design stuff. Um, but it's just kind of being around the culture and being around the people and knowing what went into it, I think makes
Yeah.
my approach to it a little different. But I
Right.
also understood some of the other things out there. Who wants a hybrid, dildomatic, needs to be a 5-speed. I remember, and I won't say the executive's name, but somebody very high up in the project. We're at a big NSX event, and somebody that's a lot more passionate about the first gen NSX than I am. He They were face to face. This guy was all in his face. You should have made it a manual. You should have did this. You should have did that. You people. I'm just like, look, car industry is a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Halo car. And there's a few things they probably could have, should have, would have, but you could say that about the first gen. You could say that about any car.
Sure. 100% you can say that about any car. That's a fact.
Yeah, it would have been nice had the Type S. Well, let me clear up something with the Type S because a lot of people are like, why isn't it a Type R? Well, because Type R belongs to Honda
Honda.
and Acura has Type S. And you could say, okay, what about the late 90s? Well, Acura was still kind of its infancy stage. So then you
Sure.
had the Acura Integra Type R, which is really the Honda Integra Type we know, right?
Yep.
It's just a Type R version of its counterpart.
Yep.
And so I tell
And we
everyone
also
the
didn't
NSX
get him.
Type S,
And we also didn't
right?
get them here in the States, right? Those are JDM, real JDM cars. We never got the real Type R's here in the States. We got Civic SIs and we got the Integra Type S's, but we never got
So the
full on
first,
real type, right?
yeah, so the 97, 98, 99, I think they missed a year, maybe 97, 98, 2000,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Acura Integra Type R's were the exact same car. It was just right-hand drive, left-hand drive, and the front ends were different,
Yeah.
which is cool. But beyond that, I think that's it. Um, Another thing is the Type S's are kind of a stepped up performance version of the original car, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
an NSX or MDX or whatever. The NSX-R, the 90s versions and the '02 to '05 version, it's the same car. It's just kind of race spec out, a little lighter, a little better suspension. It's the same 3.2 liter 290 or 3.0 liter 270. So by that measure, you can't do that today. You can't come up with literally the same car lighter and try to sell it for more. So, but that's kind of a
Unless
breakdown
you're
of why the
Ferrari,
Type S is different.
and
Unless
even
you're
for
Ferrari, yeah, you can do what you
and even
want if you're a
Ferrari, I'm just
Ferrari,
like, what are you
Lamborghini.
doing, dog? What are you
Yeah,
doing over there? What the hell? I feel you
yeah,
though.
or
I
like
mean,
Lambo. Here you go. Here. They're all laughing, behind closed doors. Like, look, we're gonna put out a Lambo. It's gonna look like it's made to go um, off road.
mm-hmm.
Let's put maybe a luggage thing on. Let's do something. Let's make it overlandish and let's sell it. And
That's sell
watch
it.
these motherfuckers. These people in America are gonna eat that shit up.
Oh,
You know.
yes. So
But yeah, you're
I
right.
laugh because it's so true. I
It's
still,
mind
by the way,
blowing.
let me
And
be clear. I love a Storado. I do, but you're not lying because you're 100% on point.
I have a
So on
couple
point.
friends that have one or had one, And they stole that from Moss, the Moss Porsches that are like, oh, well, they're jacked up. They came out, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. People started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And those are cool. But yeah, that's just the big difference. And people are always asking, how come it's not a Type R? It's why is it Type S? Well, because there is no such thing as a modern Acura Type R. It
Right.
just doesn't exist.
I think
And
it's
even in Japan, the Honda NSX is still an NSX Type S.
yeah, that very true. You always see people go ahead and swap out the Acura badge and go ahead and put the Honda badge and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And it's if I had one, I think I'd just leave it Acura because I've known it as Acura from the very inception of
I'm
it
the
and
same way.
whatnot. Yeah, but I think it's still cool and whatnot. But I think that as the years go by, especially now when everything is getting more digitalized, the NSX was like kind of the second gen NSX was the infancy of the hybrid sports car. So it almost gets a pass, Jay, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. It almost gets a pass where even though it has a hybrid system in it, it's still I feel more on the cooler edge of like, yeah, I'd much rather have my car be like this than be so synthesized and whatnot. Um, the driving experience. I remember one time I was listening to the Smoking Tire podcast. Shout out to Matt Farah, and I because correct me if I'm wrong. The current gen NSX was built in Honda's and Acura's plant in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, the PMC.
The PMC. And I remember people making this huge deal of like, well, Acura supercar, they're building it in Ohio, they should be building it in Japan and whatnot. And that supposedly engineers were saying it's like, well, we got to make this car drive like, it's going around the flatlands of Ohio instead of going through the toge runs of Japan. And I remember hearing them say that, and I was like, that that is an interesting thought process to have. Like that you shouldn't be doing that and whatnot. When you first bought it and you had that driving experience, how did it feel to you? Like, because you look at both gens and they're so different from one another.
Right.
But yet I feel Type S is so perfectly tweaked now. And then when you compare it to any of the sports cars slash supercars, let's see, 8 years later, who are even more heavily ingrained into the hybrid technology, does it almost feel like, okay, this is great because it feels more analog than a lot of the stuff coming out in 2025?
Um, well, I haven't had the pleasure of driving like a Porsche 918 or a LaFerrari or any of those cars. I think the closest thing might be an E-Ray, maybe but an E-Ray is I don't think that's a hybrid, right?
But no, E-Ray is the hybrid. That one is the hybrid. Yeah.
It is a hybrid, so that would be the most similar.
Yeah. That's a
But
perfect
I would say
example, I would
that
think.
I drove the second gen NSX in 2017 when it came out around the test track or one of the racetracks. You know those car experiences in
Yep.
Vegas. My family, probably one of the best gifts they've ever given me. They bought me a
Sick.
speed package, so I drove the previous gen Audi R8 V10, so V10 Plus, and then the new NSX at the time, 2017. And the Audi was out. I mean, the R8s are nice. They're not very exhilarating. They're a nice, comfortable, good looking, great sounding. If you have the V10 car that doesn't really do much for you other than look great, and I
Mhm.
wouldn't mind one as a date car. But going around the same small track, not being like a normal track guy in that, and then getting in the NSX at first, I remember the NSX was a little weird because of the torque vectoring.
Mhm.
And that was the first time they had it. So they probably dialed it in significantly by the time I got my Type S. But when I was able to go around that track, by the fourth lap, I'd already beat my fastest time by a minute and smoked my time in the Audi R8.
Dude.
And when I was doing that, again, this is somebody who I'm not really a track guy. I
Right.
play video games, but while I was kind of pushing it, it felt analog,
Yeah.
and I was shocked. It felt like I was in control of the car, even though I wasn't,
Mhm.
but I still felt like I was in control of the car. And
Yeah.
and I think a lot of these cars, I mean, that's what they a Porsche. I say Porsche is absolute king.
Mhm.
But unless you get the most special ones that are out there, they probably all feel the same. Um,
Carreras all feel the same up until you start to get into a it's weird to go ahead and have a Carrera have the turbo engine and then go up to a 911 turbo and turbo S and then also be heavily turboed. It's like there's no differentiation anymore until you get into the GT series.
yeah.
GT series.
By the time I got the Type S, like I mean, with my old NSX, I mean, I had turbo on there and flex fuel, and I mean, I had it all like you know spaceshipped out. And even when I took the wrap off, it was still very much better than your average JDM
Mm-hmm.
modified car. Obviously, you can't touch like a lot of the GTRs and stuff, especially the modern ones. But it was still a very analog feel. Felt like a go-kart. And then getting in this car, I was just the first thing this is kind of funny. Picking up from the dealership within 2 miles, driving down Warner, I thought to myself, God, this air conditioner is so nice. And and it's really we spend so much time trying to modify our old car, modernize our old cars,
Yeah.
and you still want them from drivability and creature comforts, but you really realize what creature comforts are like once you have a modern performance car. And I've never pushed my Type S nearly as hard as I did my NA2.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't have to.
Right.
But I do get aggressive with it, but I'm not trying to, drift around corners
Sure.
and do all the other shit that you do. And then I think age has a little bit to do with it too.
Sure.
Not really being a track guy. If anything happens to this car, sure, cars are replaceable and people aren't, but this is one of the 350 made in the
Yeah.
world. And people are like, are you going to take it to the track? Maybe I'll do a parade lap, but I'd rather just take a Miata, something that's not going to break the bank, that's already a proven track beast,
Right.
maybe an S2000. But that's the biggest difference is I didn't want anything to happen to my old car, but I built it essentially from the ground up. I
Yeah.
replaced all the panels, did this, did that. The parts are still, most parts are readily available still for a first gen NSX. Everyone makes an aftermarket body panel. There's nothing for this car.
Wild.
So, if I damage my door, they all 2017 to 2022 NSX, they all use the same door.
Mhm.
But if I damage my door, I could be out 8 months. Hell, I
Yep.
could get it totaled because they won't replace it. So, I have a lot of fun in the car. I love every minute of it. It feels great. I thought I would miss shifting. I don't miss it. But I know if I needed to, there's a lot of fun manual transmission cars. Hell, I tell everyone to this day, the most fun I've ever had in a manual transmission car was like a 1990, no, like a 1987 or 88 Ford Probe GT.
Yep.
Like it's a blast. Cars that feel fast that aren't versus cars that are fast but don't feel fast. I'll
I
take
feel you.
the first any time of the day. In fact, I had a 1991 Civic hatchback DX hollowed out. I riveted a Wings West body kit on there because I just no, it was drywall screws. I was too impatient, so I attached drywall screws to it, and that thing was loud. Uh, the windshield wiper didn't work, and that's when I blew my motor in my Integra, and I drove that thing around the winter in Michigan, sliding like basically just like literally sliding down all these streets, having a blast, dude. And I got more attention in that car from people than I did in the Integra. So, um, yeah, there's always a car out there that's just as fun as as long as you're willing to reach out and get it. But with the NSXs, love the shit out of both of them.
Right.
But I don't regret buying the Type S. But I will say this: it's not my forever car, and it has nothing to do with the NSX as much as it is the parts availability, not knowing the future of electrification
Sure.
because it's a hybrid, but it's not a hybrid in the modern sense that you can pick up a Chevy Blazer hybrid.
Mhm.
The electric motors help you steer and they help you launch, and that's all they help you do.
Right.
They
Which
don't help you
is
save gas.
they don't have it. Which I mean, amen to that. Like I kind of love it. You know what I mean? And that's what I love.
Yeah,
And that's why when I brought it up, I was like, comparing it to like a Revuelto and an NSX being in the same conversation kind of makes sense, but not really because one of them makes double the horsepower. But it's obviously new age technology where the NSX is actually from 2017, but they were probably planning it out for like 6 years prior. So we're actually looking at probably like in reality a 15-year-old idea and whatnot. And that's why I like the fact that almost like the GTR, the R35 GTR, which I mean, you remember when they first came out in '08, people
Mm-hmm.
were like, oh man, this is so high tech and stuff like that. And now you look at a 2023
Clunky
GTR,
transmission though.
yeah, clunky ass transmission. And then you also look at it now and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, that is really rugged compared to the competition and
Yeah.
whatnot. And but I like that because I love the analog to it, the analogness to it. Sorry, that was a tough one, and whatnot. But I want to ask you something because because we've discussed so much about the NSX, it was discontinued. Was it late 2023, early 2024, right?
Nope. The NSX Type S that I have was the last year, the 22.
The 22. Okay, I apologize. My bad. I got my years mixed up there. But, you know, the, Honda's not really making any sports cars anymore. The closest thing that they go ahead and do is obviously make the eighth generation Civic Type R. Or are we in the ninth generation now? I think we might be in the ninth, right? Is it ninth generation?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Ninth
Apologies.
generation. Yep.
So we're in the ninth gen. So that's the closest to any of their sports cars that they're making right now. And honestly, I don't know about you, Jay, but I have
You mean
felt
Philip? So you mean like Mother Honda, Motherland Honda?
Mother Honda, the full on Mother Honda.
Okay.
Yep. We're not, they're not doing anything anymore. Nissan has the Z, but we don't know what the hell's going to happen with Nissan. Um, I think Toyota's in a little bit of a better place right now, but like I think that we're in the last year of the A90 Supra, I'm pretty sure.
Yep. Yep.
And then GR Corolla still exists, which is great. I love it. But we these three brands that you and I grew up with for so many years that brought out so many of the great cars that we just dropped and whatnot, they might not be doing anything like that anymore. Do you have any sense of like, not fear per se, but maybe perhaps like hesitancy, or you ask yourself like, could they do it? Would it be beneficial to them? What do you think? Because you're much deeper ingrained into it than I am. What are your thoughts?
I think all the companies are still going to build that halo vehicle,
Mhm.
whether they lose money on it or not. Um, at the end of the day, people like us, we love the cars. We represent less than 0.001% of consumers. And so they can design cars for us all day and they're going to go out of business. And what a lot of people say is, well, you have Porsche. Yeah, well, that's what Porsche does. They literally have a lineup of Porsches and two SUVs that actually carry their sales. But they can afford to make a manual transmission car and make it go all balls to the wall because they have a very loyal base and they're not counting on that for survival.
Mhm.
Um, I I know that an Acura or Honda has confirmed that they are working on a new sports car. They don't know if it's going to be a successor to the NSX necessarily. People speculate they say it's the new S2000. It doesn't have to be either. It could just be like their new car. Like we don't have to recycle names.
Right.
But we do
I
know
think
that they are
Prelude is
working on
coming too,
something.
right?
Yeah, but that's like 180 horsepower hybrid. And even if they come out with a Prelude Type R, what's it
It's
going to
not
be?
the same.
205,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Same
so
power
yeah,
as it
they've
was
kind of
making in
given up on those.
1999, bro. Right?
Yeah, there was. I think they had more power back in the last gen. Like the
Yeah.
Prelude SH probably had more than that. I think it was like 190 maybe or 195 or something.
Yeah.
Um, but all I remember is it had more than the Integra because I actually wanted a Prelude and couldn't afford it because it was like I want to say 22,500 or something. And I also wanted an Accord, like a four-door Accord, and all we could really afford that I liked. It sounds silly to say now in 2005 was an Acura Integra GSR. I'm so glad I had that car, even though I blew the motor and wrecked the other one. But um, yeah, I think Nissan's probably they have to come out with something, and I think motorsports drives these things. So
Mhm.
as long as they're involved in some sort of a motorsports, then they're incentivized to kind of push the envelope and create a road version of something.
Right.
But they,
Do,
they have a challenge ahead, right? Especially with
yeah.
electrification. And hopefully I think more of these companies are gonna stop focusing as much on it. You can make it for your consumer market, but you also still need to have something else out there. And I think a more refined and improved hybrid is the way to go. And you said something very important earlier in pointing out because you're right. Yeah, the Type S is nice. It's a nicely tweaked, balanced version of a car that's basically 15 years old when you count when it was first. I think it's 2012 when it was first announced in the Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
And it took 5 years to come out. And actually, the car around Ohio was a completely different car. The car around the Nürburgring was a completely different car. They had to change the car so many times at the last minute. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's essentially the same technology. So when people say, well, yeah, the E-Ray is a lot better than an NSX, like, well, yeah, it's new tech.
Yeah.
It's the Honda General Motors partnership. And I think Acura kind of missed the gate a little bit because honestly, I don't think they even plan to sell their Type S's. I don't think they
Mm.
plan to sell them out in I don't know 12 hours. Um, because the 21 model sales are really slow before they cut it off in preparation for the Type S. And, it's the price of the car, it's the technology, there's a number of factors. It's dealerships buying and speccing them out and then wanting to add 20, 30 on top of it.
Yep.
But I think they miss an opportunity to improve at least my car. If you're going to go out on a bang, at least improve some things,
Yeah.
from the 2017. And it's not the same car, but it's the same enough to say they didn't really improve anything. I mean, the car audio, the interior, the 7-inch display, you could buy a brand new at the time 2021 Honda Civic and it had a superior infotainment center to the NSX. I got the same one that the 2017 has. It's garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the price delta between an NSX and a base price Civic is relatively grandiose. We're probably talking about 80 to 90K, somewhere in that threshold and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. For
yeah,
the price, they could have, just like this is our swan song. I mean, the carbon's cool, the new Aero. So the
mhm.
story on the Aero, the Aero, do you know the story on the Aero on
I
the
don't know. Hit
Type
me.
S? Acura sent the car to Japan and say, improve this. So the Japanese actually designed the front and rear bumper for the Type S, and that's
Oh,
why it looks
sick.
different.
Okay.
Yeah. What could have
I
been, going back to earlier, right?
Damn it, man. Come on. But I'm so happy that you own it and you get a chance to experience this car because I think it is very much an experience type car. And just I'm so happy that Honda and Acura got a chance to build it and everything. And I think anybody owes it to themselves to, if you know anybody with an NSX, at least ride shotgun in it, or if they're cool with handing you the keys, take it for a drive. Because I think
Hmm.
it's such an interesting, it's a really cool car. And one thing that you and I can both agree on is that Honda has always done really well with refinement, really well with tuning a lot of things. And like they make things, I feel, handle even better than what they should. I can say that having owned a couple of Hondas in my life. And then,
Yeah.
just they put so much blood, sweat, and tears into the project of the second generation NSX that anybody out there, that if you just want to try it, please do so, because I think they're really rad ass cars, and I'm happy that you own one. You've got whatever comes next afterwards, and I'm glad that you have the mentality that you do. Even though I'd like for you to honestly keep the car, but I'm glad that you are so open to wanting to have different experiences still and whatnot. I think that's I think that's what makes the car culture thing so great. And I want to
Yeah.
talk to you. Oh, go ahead, please go ahead.
No, I won't forget this.
Well, I just wanted to say that this is what I, because I wanted to bring up hard parking, and I wanted to bring up your ideology
Hmm.
behind your podcast and everything, because one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning was you and I do something very similar, yet we go about it in such different facets. And one of the things I admire about you more is you really hone in deep on not just the culture and not just the storytelling with whatever guests you may have, but you also talk about the current events happening all over the world. Um, Even in a time where some subjects can be relatively touchy, you choose to go
Yeah.
there, and that's something I always admire about you and whatnot. Because you definitely have bigger balls than I do, Jay, and I respect. My question to you is, when you did come up with the concept of doing the podcast and whatnot, why decide to go ahead and do it a whole mixture of the car culture plus current events instead of either going with just car culture or with current events? Like, what was the ideology to mix both of those two things together?
It's kind of an interesting, like I approach things just differently sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And I think I think when we started the podcast, it was so Brando is his name. And when Brando and I started the podcast, it's okay, why are we doing this? Well, let's just talk about cars. I go, okay, Brando, I've loved cars my entire life. I don't live, breathe, sleep cars anymore. I don't know. I know what I like and I don't like, but you start talking to me about this has an Edelbrock thing and this has, I was like, oh, okay, cool. No idea. Pretty cool. I can smile. So, you be the car guy and I'll just be the comic relief. But we wanted to keep it cars,
Mm-hmm.
but talk current events because cars is, we both had a significant following on social media. So the thought is, wow, we could just parlay our following into this. Doesn't necessarily work that way. But that's our goal initially. And so when I came up with the non-automotive automotive podcast, which I don't really call it as much that now, but that's still what it
Mm-hmm.
is there's a show I used to watch all the time, and it's still on now. I don't really watch them as much. They've gotten a little kind of annoying woke for me, but I'm gonna forever love the show, and I tune in when I can, and I laugh when I tune in usually. But it's the Dan LeBatard show with Stu Gatz, which is a
Horse.
sports show,
Yep.
and I love sports. I tell
Mm-hmm.
everybody sports is my first love, cars is second. College football season's coming up. I there's a Japanese car show in LA coming up in October. And I told my buddy Mike I'd go with him. And I checked the calendar yesterday and I go, hey, the Red River rivalry, Texas over you. Sorry, bud. I'm
Oh.
staying home and I'm watching the football game. Like I
Yeah.
love sports.
Yep.
And so, the Dan LeBatard show, they call themselves a non-sports sports show.
Yeah.
And a lot of times their callers would call in and be pissed because they say stick to sports and they'll talk about everything. So when he has his guests on, he digs them a little deeper. They'll talk about current topics that's going on.
Yeah.
And Dan also taught me that, don't accept every guest request. Are you interesting? Are they interesting? Does somebody have something interesting to say? Is it going to entertain you? And sometimes it's a business decision to have certain people on, just to try to grow it.
Yeah.
Like when I had Tim McRain, the CEO of the M1 Concourse in Detroit, on, he was making that transition from Monterey. And the publicist reached out, hey, I got Tim McRain. You get the emails. I'm like, sure, why not? And that ended up being a great podcast episode. And I got to meet the guy and we got a photo together. And it opened up some doors. I would get emails every year. Hey, the concourse is coming. Would you like to come out and be a guest? I never took him up on it. But that's why we kind of got into podcasting to see if they would open some doors to do some more cool car shit, right?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we get an invite to Monterey and be able to do that, or get media passes to Barrett Jackson.
Yep.
But with Dan, rejecting, especially during the Super Bowl week, they're like, hey, athlete's over there. He wants to come. He's like, no, I don't want to talk to him today. And I'm listening to him like, damn, I would love to have this guy on my show, but he's like, they're not interesting. But it's that happy go fun nature of how they did their show. And I used to listen to Adam Carolla a lot too. I don't listen to him as much anymore. I like his show. But the combination of those two shows is kind of how I mentally kind of approach this show.
Yeah.
And then taking it to the next level, we are more than just the cars we drive. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we all know that. But to the outside world, all car people are the same.
Yeah.
The inside world, what we are is we're this giant building, like a shopping mall, and it just says car people on it. So everybody who doesn't go into the mall just assumes it's just full of car people. You open that door, and there's all these different shops, different rooms, different uh, sets of people, very tribal at times, right?
Very. Extremely.
Very tribal. And but one thing we all have in common besides the cars is we all have our own thoughts and things we go through. And so I like to try to outline to see where their head's at, kind of see what they think about this. And I usually let the guests kind of go with the flow, unless they're so famous and important. I have to ask them some of those, I call them red carpet questions.
Right.
Just but I try to dig a little deeper,
Mhm.
and that's what the show is. And the show suffers, I think, from that in a sense, to where people like yourself who listen to it or watch it that have an appreciation for it really enjoy it. And it's the same deal like a Dan LeBatard. I tell people, give me 5 episodes. If you don't fall in love with this show in 5 episodes, never listen to me again. But give me 5 episodes. And so when someone's like, "Hey, I came across your podcast and it sucks, stick to cars, moving on," I'm like, "You've listened to one episode and it was just
Right.
not the one for you." But the car people want more cars. Most of the car people, because you're a car person,
Mhm.
but you like the show. The non-car people get confused when I say anything that has to do with cars. That's why I used to have the rental car segment, is because everybody rents cars. I just have to make sure that it's like, yeah, this is great. Seating for four, da 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 da. I would rent it again, or maybe I'd buy it. That was kind of my attempt, because I feel that way. I wasn't lying, but that's kind of my attempt of like kind of normalizing it to the non-car people that tune into the show and listen to the monologues. Then as soon as I have the builder's corner, which I don't have anymore, come on, they would stop listening. But that's kind of why I approach the show the way I do, is because we all meet through cars,
Mhm.
or in our case, car media. But when we do this the other way around, and you're on hard parking instead of me being on tormenting tarmac, it'll be the same deal, because this is the most. I mean, people got to understand, we've known each other a little bit online, but that was quite literally the first time we'd met in person, and we've had a few DMs back and forth. That's
Yep.
it. And I want to know who you are as well. I know you got the kids. We had that 15-minute conversation earlier, and no, people don't normally know that if they just see you out and about,
Right.
right? So it's an opportunity to kind of let people learn about the people on the show. Like, I don't talk about myself on my show unless it's a solo show,
Right.
um, and that's just giving people relatable stories on things, and so that's the construct. So the show is great, but I do think it suffers because I don't just do cars, or I don't just do life.
Mhm.
And you can imagine how much people love it when I talk sports. That's my passion. I'm gonna fucking talk sports, God damn it,
Yeah. Well, like you talk about Texas OU because you grew up in the Dallas area and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm a big sports guy myself. Like, I love baseball in particular. We just saw the NBA Finals. We saw a great 7-game series between the Pacers and the Thunder. Congratulations to OKC. When I saw
Yep.
Tyrese Halliburton blow out his Achilles, I was like, well, that's
That was
just I want to cry. I literally want to
yeah.
go cry. And not because I was rooting for the Pacers in any way, shape, or form. I just hate to see a guy of that caliber, who's having this amazing run, all of a sudden have to go down because his Achilles gave out. And let me tell you something right now.
It could have
And
been the difference right there. We don't know,
that
but
could
it
have
could have
been
been.
it could have been the difference. It really could have. We
Yep.
don't know. At the same time, the Thunder's defense, like if you saw the way that they clamped down in the third quarter, it was
Mm-hmm.
unreal. That all being said, the last thing I wanted to do, but this is what I do anyways, is I always go into the comment section and I'll go ahead and see that Jhae is what do they call him? A free throw mercenary or whatever, and just like stupid stuff like that, or making like crazy concept ideas and theories of like, oh, well, the Thunder didn't have to play the Lakers. It's like, yeah, you're right, because the Thunder went ahead and ran across all the other competition that they played in the 3 rounds to get to the NBA Finals, and then when the Lakers went ahead and went against the Timberwolves, they got lit up. By the way, I fuck with the Lakers. I like the Lakers. I love
Yeah.
LeBron James and
Yeah.
Luca. They didn't show
Yeah.
up against Anthony Edwards. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
They
It's
didn't take care of business at the end of the
they
day.
did. They
They got to do what they're
absolutely
supposed to
did
do.
not. They did
Mm-hmm.
not. The Timberwolves very much did. The Thunder obviously very much did. The Pacers very much did. People were like, "Oh, well, the Pacers went through a very, very easy Eastern Conference." I'm like, have you absolutely lost the plot? Like they did not. They went ahead and they went against the Bucks in the first round. Giannis was healthy. I understand Dame was out. I understand it. Giannis is still a top 4 player on the planet. Like whatever way you want to slice it, and they did the thing. They beat him in 5 games. They did the thing. Then
Yep.
they play against the number 1 seed in the East, Cleveland Cavaliers, who this is, I believe many people consider them to be probably the second best Cleveland team ever because they won like 64 games or something like that.
Yeah.
Yo, they beat them in 5 games too. And people say, oh, well, they had like an injury and stuff like that. Donovan Mitchell was still on the floor. Last time I checked, Donovan Mitchell is the best player on the team. He was there. And then they were like, oh, well, the Knicks, then the Knicks show up after people talk smack about the Knicks who were saying, oh, they shouldn't have beat the Celtics. They were going up 3-1 and had an 11-point lead before Tatum even went down. Like, don't even come at me like that. That all being said, I appreciate the love and admiration for sports because I'm about it too. You know what I mean? And I wish it's so interesting that cars and sports they don't go as much hand in hand as
It's
I
weird,
would like
right?
for them to. It's a very weird thing.
Yeah, it's weird.
But probably because car culture can be so can suck you in so much and then sports can suck you in so much it might be harder to balance where like if you're into sports you're taking in almost everything around it you can be a fan of basketball and football and baseball or hockey or any of or boxing or mixed martial arts or anything like that you can or hell if you want to include professional wrestling into it of course like that I almost feel like that's a full melting pot where cars is so big that it's its own melting pot in itself. It almost makes it very difficult to love something else. You know what I mean? So I'm happy
Yeah.
that you do it that way. I think that's really impressive. And again, shout out to Dan LeBatard. I agree with you. Sometimes he goes a little bit too far, and whatnot. But I'll say this, and I think, and maybe this is a challenge to both of us, Jay, is sometimes can we be a little bit too conservative? And should we want to push the envelope on certain things? Is that a thing that we owe it to ourselves as not just podcast hosts, but perhaps as individuals who like to learn? What do you think?
No, I agree with you, and that's really why. I mean, LeBatard, I love the guy. I mean, he's the one dream guest that I don't have. I had Adam Kroll on my show before,
Freaking rad, man.
and that took a couple years of curating, not forcefully, but it got to a point where I was comfortable enough to say, "Hey, man, let's come on the show." He says, "Yeah, get a hold of blah blah blah." And I was like, "All right, cool, right?" But LeBatard taught me to embrace the conversation. There's two things can be true at the same time. There's always a second part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's why it drives me crazy when my wife's like, you're not open to this. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm the most open person in this house to anything. Like, trust me. Like, listeners of my podcast will tell you I play stuff as close down the middle as possibly can, even if I have my own, opinions, and I'll give them when asked, but I don't necessarily volunteer them. But yeah, I'm all about hearing different viewpoints. There's another podcast I listen to religiously, and it has nothing to do with cars. It has nothing to do with sports.
Yeah.
But its base is for incredibly successful people that all started from nothing. And I mean, we're talking about guys who started PayPal and Uber and Facebook, and some are more conservative than others.
Right.
And they go at each other. They're best friends, and every single point they make, it's a good one.
Right.
And so, that helps me have patience and helps me open my eyes and ears more to different things. So yeah, 100%. And even like I said, even with LeBatard, it's less him and some of his crew, like Mike Ryan. I've always wanted to punch him in the face, whether he was crying about the Hurricanes, the Miami Hurricanes. And I think he does it as an act. But sometimes he'll just post some things. I'm just like, dude, like, just shut up, man. Like, you don't, no one cares. But yeah, it's all about the conversation,
For sure. I was thinking about as you were speaking of, and it seems like, straight up, like LeBatard is one of those things that is one of those people, and his show is one of the things that currently still inspires you and whatnot. It's funny because in the same way that you talked about with Corolla, that's kind of how it came with when I had Matt Farah come on. Like I'd had the pleasure of having Zach be on the show. And I remember one time I shot Zach a DM. I was like, hey, man, I'd really love to have you on the show. I'm such a big fan. Like, you do your thing and you're amazing. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, oh man, Clapman's coming on my show. Like, holy shit. Like,
Right.
this is a
Yeah.
big deal, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Absolutely.
and he comes on the show and he does it and it's magic. Like, I loved, it was actually one of the best interviews I feel like I've ever produced. And then he comes on the second time and he kills it again. And I got to stress this. And if you don't listen to the Smoking Tire, I can understand it. Respect. It's all good. But I want to say Matt Farah is incredibly intelligent and knows his stuff. And Clapman absolutely knows his stuff. And on top of that,
Yeah.
Zach Clapman is fucking funny. Like, he's just so witty and stuff, and he's so talented, and he's great. Him and Matt have this amazing chemistry that cannot be denied. And I remember, like, I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and invite Matt. I've had Zach on the show now twice. Now it's time to invite Matt. And I sent him the show, and come to find out, Zach puts in a good word for me, and that's why Matt said yes.
That's all it
And
takes.
I
Yep.
was like, that's unbelievably cool. Like, Zach, I owe you one, because it's Matt Farah. This is the guy that, him and Johnny Lieberman, they were the two dudes that kind of made up my love for automotive media in the United States side for the last like 10 to 15 years. I was
Yeah.
19, 20, Ignition first comes out. Johnny's doing Ignition. He's doing head to head with Carlos Lago at the time, and then Jason Kamisa comes on later on from Automobile, and like, that's what I grew up on top of watching all the other stuff that I watched. So like, when I have had those two individuals do my show in the same way that you had Corolla do your show, it was like, we've actually done something here. What the fuck? Like,
Well,
this is cool.
that's the thing, right? And that's the thing right there. And when you have people like that, people you appreciate, people you watch come on
Yeah.
your show, it also gives you that extra motivation and push. It's like, hey, I can do this.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure if I'm like this, you're like this. There's some times where you're just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But you look at your number count and it's going up and you're chasing. And like I'm like, Tormenting, okay, 100. Yeah, right. He's in. Yeah, that's cool, man. He's not just some hobbyist. Like, he's into this,
Yeah.
and it's like we kind of provide motivation to each other as podcasters, because your average podcast flames out 10 11 episodes.
Facts.
And if it even gets there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had even some local podcasters. I'm like, hey, what are your plans for your show? Keep it going. If you get to show 10, I'll come on and be your guest, and they may flame out at 7, 8, or 9, or 2.
Yeah.
And so it's a certain level of commitment I don't think people really truly understand. So when you get this new episode of Tormenting Tarmac is out, people, when they see that, whether they choose to engage or not, number one, they're subscribed,
Yeah.
which is good. And two, we're one-man shows. We're one-stop shops.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have our producers. Ideally, it would be nice just to be the talent, but we're not there yet, right?
Hopefully
We're
at
not the
some
Dan
point, man.
LeBatards.
Yep.
I mean, every single one we've mentioned, they are the talent at this point.
Yep.
And going back to Dan really quick, one of the things that they have that I wanted and I've searched for years, and I still haven't quite got there yet, but they have fun. They have a group. It's Dan, it's Stugatz, and then it's the gallery that chimes in and laughs. It's this big fun thing, and I wanted that as a car show to talk about weird things. And maybe I'm bickering with somebody off microphone a little bit, but it's wanting that too, because they have fun every day.
Right. But you say that, but I see you have fun every single time, every episode that you do. You seem like you absolutely are having the best of time. And I think that is so important to make your show whatever success you want it to be. And on top of that, I'm going to go, I'll shout this person out, because she's actually become a really good friend. And you and I both, we interact with so many people. And when I thought to myself, when I was doing all the shows, the way I view it is, people don't listen to me. They're coming in to go ahead and listen to the people that are coming on and them tell their stories. Right. So I don't know if you think of it the same way, but that's the way I think of it. But one time this individual told me, shout out to Kayla Rundle. She was like, people she's go cool. Ahead. She's the shit. Her and Sam, love them. They're amazing.
Yeah, they're cool. Yeah.
And she tells me, yo, people listen to the podcast not for us, but they listen for you. And I was like, that's wild. I'm like, I'm not interested. I don't consider myself interesting, right? I can like this conversation that you and I are having, Jay. I'm infatuated with everything you're telling me. I'm infatuated in your story and things of that nature. But it's weird that sometimes people want to go ahead and come back because they think that you and I, as the hosts, like they think we're all right. And I'm just like, that's wild to me. Like it still blows my mind doing this 3.5 years later. It blows my mind that people actually give a rat's ass what I have to say when I'm thinking to myself, and I firmly believe this, that if you're listening to this episode tonight, you should be listening for Jhae Pfenning, not for Jorge Aquino, because like you're the fucking shit. But it's cool to know that people listen to our shows and they think that, hey, we're all right. That's an interesting thing that I've come to notice and realize over the years, man. It's so fascinating.
I think both things can be true at the same time. Because especially with like Kayla, like you get a lot of the local talent too, like the people that are on the scene, and I think that's great. I think you have a really great thing going over there. And I would like I've described your podcast as it's a very fun, uh, not too deep, you know, great time. You can have it on in the background while you're working, and it's just a good time. It's just a fun, easy to follow conversation. A lot of laughing going on with your guests, a lot of jokes, but at the same time, to Kayla's point, yeah, you're doing less interviewing and more conversation, right? And so when it's a conversation, you have two sides of it. I think because I'm pretty sure, or a very large percentage, if not all your shows are guest driven.
At this point, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I've
mean,
never done a solo show and I'm always afraid to do it. I commend you for doing the solo shows because I wish I could do that. I can't.
you can, and sometimes you have to just do it.
Yeah.
It's like this year for 25, my commitment to myself is I'm going to get out of the studio more
Mm,
because it's so comfortable sitting here. And I challenge myself to do video too, because
yeah.
once you first time you start doing video, you suck because you're talking to this void,
Yep.
you know, and it's easier to talk to somebody,
Right.
right? But you get used to it. And then imagine when you take your show on the road, unless I have the hard parking pop up
Mhm.
where I'm still basically in my own studio space somewhere else, it's total pandemonium. It's like when I went, like Ron Evans is the one I'm working on now,
Yeah.
and his fucking camera was out of focus like 80% of the fucking interview, and I didn't know till I got home. That's an hour and a half, bro. And there's nothing you can do about it. So every time I do that, there's always something that doesn't necessarily go right, but it's a
Yeah.
challenge to myself to keep podcasting and get out there. And I think talking about getting out of your comfort zone, when I had, Brando on here and I had to decide moving forward, it was just going to be me. And that's why I started making segments. And maybe that's something you could do
Yeah.
is you can use a segment as something to wrap in a guest
Yeah.
and still have it be your solo show. Even now, rarely do I do a show where it's just 100% all me.
Mhm.
Hell, we just did I had to rename it Shadow Corner. But even then, I called and had someone give me their wildest conspiracies for 10 minutes sharp. Just don't get me canceled. And that's something I could throw in. Yeah, that's the rule. Just don't get me canceled.
Just don't get us canceled.
Yeah, but that's something I could throw in the episode.
Right.
So I could still, because here's the thing, right? You're more interested than you think you are. And because you have all these thoughts and opinions. I mean, we know you love sports, you love the family, you obviously love cars and have a passion. You could talk cars, you could talk circles around me in cars, and you have your own life experiences. And that's what people gravitate to as well. And that's when they start falling in love with the host, not just the guest.
Yeah.
So then when they look forward to that, okay, well, now we have, Kayla's going to be on again, next week. And, Jorge's going to ask her about this, but I already know it was Jorge's opinion on it too.
Right.
And it just becomes more of a conversation. And I think that also helps you kind of float in between the weeks that maybe you don't have anything going on. And it doesn't have to be long.
Right.
What's going on in your life? What's your car build? What pissed you off this week? What happened to people's decency. What happened to customer service? I'm
Right.
standing in line and this lady's sitting there and she's on her phone and she doesn't even say, I'll be with you in 1 minute. Like, what the fuck? And I guarantee you, everybody listening has experienced some version of that,
Thanks.
and that makes you relatable. So,
Absolutely.
you could keep it a guest driven show. My problem is I went down my list. I'm like, shit, if I get to all these people on this list, and I have a running list,
Right.
um, every single episode for the rest of this year has to be a guest driven show. But what happens with that is you don't get a chance to tell your own stories, your own viewpoints, your own things on
Sure.
car news, unless your guest wants to talk about it. So that's what I mean. Both things could be true at the same time.
That's very true. And but well, damn, man, I did not expect you to say all those kind of things about me, but that
Well,
means
I'm
more.
on your show. I have to.
So I'm gonna slip you that
Just don't
hundred.
forget my Cash App, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go ahead and set. I'm gonna Venmo it to you after we're done, bro. No, but it's very kind of you. Because it's always kind to go ahead and hear things from people, and it really is. But it coming from someone like you who does the same thing as I do, and you've been doing it for longer, and I feel like you're doing it at an even higher level and whatnot. That sort of stuff like that
We're the
resonates.
same.
I don't know, man. I'm riding your coattails. I'll tell you that right now. But I'm happy to do so, and
Hang on,
I'm
baby. We're going places.
let's go. And we're about to do it.
Let's
We're
go.
about to. Actually, what we
Yep.
need to go ahead and do, and this is actually something I want to have a conversation with you about is you are a founding member of the Warehouse. And I want to give a big shout out to the
Yeah.
Warehouse, of course, Rebecca Wynn and everybody involved with that, because what she's doing, what she's cooking up over there, Jay, it's truly something special. Like it can't be described. Um, Yet I'm seeing it in front of my very own eyes. She was kind enough to come on the podcast a few months ago, and it was a real treat to have her. And we
I
only
listened to that.
it was a great episode, and I'm really happy. And I hope I get a chance to get her on again because there's a lot more meat on the bone left in that conversation, and whatnot. And she's an incredible human being. But you guys just had a really cool private members event, with that really cool artist and whatnot.
Troy
But
Dalton.
yes, amazing stuff. Super talented, that dude. It's unreal. But you're a part of that. You're literally a founding member. You're helping lay the bricks to make Rebecca's dream into a reality, man. You and several other of the founding members, like, what does it feel like to go ahead and be a part of something that you are getting a chance to go ahead and see in its infancy, in a place where car culture is just continuing to grow and grow, and it's even in its infancy, it's making this big ass mark. What does it feel that to be a part of that, bro?
It's humbling in a sense. It's also helping break some of the molds,
Mm.
with car places, event centers, car storage. And honestly, I think the Warehouse and all their events are super cool. All the founding members that I've interacted with, and uh, embarrassingly, I haven't interacted with everybody that I've seen all the time, and I need to. I'm actually more introverted than I would seem.
Mm-hmm.
When I go places, if I know you, I'll talk to you. If I don't know you, I probably won't talk to you. And
Fair.
it's not because I think I'm different or better. I don't know.
You just keep
It's
to
just like
yourself.
whatever my own, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
my own personal things. But, it's less the Warehouse as much as it's Rebecca.
Yeah.
Uh, Rebecca, I had her on the podcast and we're going to do one as well. In fact, I was going to get her on, and then she was on yours. I go, damn, all right, literally just did it. I guess I'm going to have to wait because it's like I'm copying this guy.
No.
Um, but
You had Josh
I
on, and I was like, "Shit, I gotta go ahead and wait to have Josh on because you just did a new show with Josh." So I'm with you, bro. I'm saying same brainwave we're on.
That's funny, dude. But I've known her for a while, very casually, but she's always somebody that's working on making stuff that people actually like work.
Yeah.
And as she's incredibly smart. She's incredibly driven, and she's an excellent communicator too.
Mhm.
And you don't always find that. I mean, those people are out there, but how many of those people do we come across in our lives that we have an
I,
opportunity to work with that impact our lives and we can help impact theirs in a positive way?
yeah.
She's the reason why uh, I was doing Future Collector Car Show emceeing with Barrett Jackson. Um, I have contracted her now. This is our third year having her do work with the NSX Club to handle the media coverage because she understands the vision, because she also has that vision.
Yep.
And it's up to her to assemble the team. And I know that I'm going to be happy with the product. And so when, when she launched the warehouse, I couldn't be there because we were just coming off of NS Expo last year, and I couldn't get to the other events. But going up there and becoming a member and hanging out and getting to I guess network and just socialize with people, it's unlike anything I would have ever imagined it to be, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to kind of describe. I mean, you have some recurring guests that are also founding members, but it's so hard to describe to people, to your point, exactly what it is. It's not some highfalutin um, look at me, I got this and you don't thing.
Hmm.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
Couldn't agree with you
And
more.
so, I've had those conversations with people. They're like, "Oh, the warehouse." Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, no, no. It's whatever you think it is. It's not. Why don't you come
Right.
to an event with me? Um, and when they have their open events, and you'll see. And I told a friend of mine, I go, I'm not trying to convince you that the warehouse is your people or is your crowd. I said, but I'm your crowd, so maybe the warehouse is your crowd too.
Right.
And so, but it's great to have those opportunities. And for people like you and I, it could help open even more doors for interviews and just getting to meet people. Um, yeah, I mean that's really what it's all about. It's not to sound like an opportunist because it's not that, you
Right.
know, at all. But when those opportunities present themselves, and Rebecca of all people have kind of helped teach me that you need to try to take them when they're presented to you.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm there. That's why I'm there to support her in anything and everything she ever will do. As long as I'm breathing, whether it's the warehouse or something else.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just a perfect mix between the warehouse and her being one of the co-founders and basically their daily operations runner of it.
Yeah. She's her talent and her creativity, it has no bounds, genuinely.
Yep.
And I remember her in the discussion that we had for the show. Her biggest thing was like, FOMO can be a really beneficiary thing in the things that she's doing. And I was so blown away by what she said. And I immediately understood it because what she's
Mm-hmm.
creating, like I'm going to use the Turbo Study show for just 1 second, which was
Sure.
the last show I got a chance to go to. And I'm really looking forward to the next open house that she has. I think coming up in sometime in the fall. But I went there and, cause, shout out to Eric. He was like, "Yo, Jorge, come on down." I was like, "Yeah, man, for sure." And I walk in, and Jay, I was like, "Yo, this shit is next
That was
level."
nice.
It
Yeah.
was nice, and that night, funny enough, like I'd been talking to this dude for years on IG, but never gotten a chance to go ahead and meet him. I finally met Jordan Lowballer GTR, of course, who's been on your show
Oh
too.
yeah. Yep.
Jordan's amazing.
Yep.
I got to like I literally hugged
Great
the
guy.
dude. He's the man,
Yep.
and saw so many of our friends that you and I are mutuals with and whatnot. And I was just like looking around, and it was not just the camaraderie of the people, but it was also the layout, and it was also just the vibe of everything going on. There was a luxury mixed in with just an everydayness, which is very hard to go ahead and put together.
Yep.
Really hard to
Yep.
put together. And she did it flawlessly, her and her team. And I was just like thinking to myself, I literally came out walking out of there and I'm like, you know, I, I, I I should put in money into this, even though it's not an economically a good decision for me right now. But I really should actually be a part of this, and that is something that I want to do. So I'm putting it out there right now, Rebecca. I want to be a founding member of the fucking warehouse so bad. Give me some time, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be a member. But it was just something. You said it. Everything that you think it isn't. It's completely different. But you come out going in there, and you're like, yeah, I'm in the right space. I'm in the right place. It's very cool. And I'm so happy that you are so highly affiliated with that and you're repping her and you're repping the warehouse. And you know what I love? I'd love for us to go ahead and do a dual show where we're at the warehouse, like
Mhm.
in an event where people get a chance to come hang out with us, but you and I are doing a show together. Like, I think that would be
That'd be a lot
incredible.
of fun.
That would be
Hmm.
absolutely a blast. And I think because, and that's the type of vibe that she caters. And I never got a chance to go to any of the future collector car shows. And I hope that they do it in 2026. Cause if so, I want to go. I will take and carve out the time to do it because again, like it's just a different side of Barrett Jackson, one that you would not expect. And you've been a part of that as well. Like how, like that must have been a whole hell of a fun to be a part of that.
Of course. I don't know what the future holds for that event. They didn't have one this year.
Mm.
And I hope that, I mean, those of us who know what it is, it's a great event. And to your point, 1,000%, it's an aspect of Barrett Jackson that I think it's untapped riches. But the last one they had was the fall show last year when they did the whole fall thing, and I
Yeah.
think across the board with Barrett, the whole fall thing just didn't work. Um, it might work moving forward, but from vendors to the smaller amount of cars to,
It's
it's
just
just
too close to
it's
January. It's kind of
yeah,
tough.
all the snowbirds are still out of town, all the
Yeah.
money is still gone, and it was a lot hotter than they thought it was going to be, which really sucked for people. But I hope that wasn't the end of it. But to be part of something like that, again, I will say it wouldn't have been possible without Rebecca. Rebecca would probably say it wouldn't have been possible without me. Um, but it was nervous as hell the first time I did it because it's out of your comfort zone. And people say, well,
Very.
come on, you have a podcast, you talk. Jorge, you have a podcast, you talk. I say, no, but it's not the same, bro.
It ain't the
You're
same,
standing up
bro.
on you're on a literal stage in front of people. There's no start, stop, record. There's no post-process editing. I say some dumb shit sometimes, and I might make up words on accident. You know what I mean? And then, I was co-hosting with Bogey, who she's a local big timer, and I didn't know who she was before. One of the most awesome people I've ever had a chance to work next to. But Barrett Jackson knows who she is.
Yeah.
Seema knows who she is, you know. But it was funny because she was like, I don't know anything about these cars out here, Jay, and I don't even know any of these people. Like everybody knows you here. And I'm like, yeah, but the people who know who you are, know who you are. And
Right.
there's something to be said about that. But then this last time when I had to do it solo, that was even more unnerving because I did it twice with her with Bogey, and then this last time I did it just solo. There was no Bogey. And Rebecca's like, "Well, how do you want to do this?" So again, she's always open to new ideas, and we kind of got around that. Going back to what we were talking about earlier about maybe you could mix in solo episodes if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Is I go, what am I going to do all day by myself? Because when you're up there with somebody else, you can kind of have banter and side talk.
Hmm.
And we just said, well, we'll just line up, we'll pick out cars, we'll pull them up to the front of the stage, and you can have a mini interviews with them, and so that's what we did. And that's, what made the day go by. But, it was cool because it got me out of my comfort zone a little bit more. I still freeze up. Um, when I did a Barrett Jackson Gila River car show that they did last year, it was like an experimental thing. It's like, all right, Jay, anytime you could read the opening statements, I'm just like,
Like
and
for
then you
one
spit it
second, I,
out.
I literally, if it was me, it's like I think I forgot how to read, bro. Like,
Yeah, it's just, and it's like you don't want to be like staring at the paper. I don't
yep.
want to be staring at the paper. I want to kind of like glance and,
Yeah.
presentational techniques, I guess.
Absolutely.
But yeah, going back to that, it's really cool to be a part of. And if I'm no longer a part of it, so be it. But I do know because of her contacts and because they did like the job or do like the job that I'm on their list of contractors or talents because the one at Gila River that had nothing to do with Rebecca at that point, like Barrett, the manager of corporate partnerships, had said, "Hey, I might have a guy," and so he sent them after me. So,
Yeah.
it's just these are the opportunities, these doors that they're going to open up for us eventually. Both of us, and we need to, just like Rebecca said, you need to take those opportunities when you can.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. And I don't know how long we've been going. I know we can go ahead and go a lot more, but I think I'm gonna call the game right here because For whenever you tell me I'm coming on hard parking, like we're gonna pick up the discussion right where we left it off here. But I can't stress to you, Jay, how much I have been looking forward to this, and I'm so happy that we finally got a chance to do it. And I could tell you that I wish we would have done it sooner, but it was just a moment of like doing it at the right time, and us
Right.
doing it right now is heartwarming. And I consider you a friend, and I consider you a colleague, and I absolutely consider you someone who I am, you know, Denzel Washington went ahead and received the Oscar back in 2001 for Training Day. And it was the same night that they went ahead and gave Sidney Poitier like an honorary Oscar for all he's done and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I remember him pointing at Sidney. He's like, the one night that they decided to give me the Oscar, they gave it to you at the same night. And it was one of those things that he tells him, like, he's chasing after him. My brother, I'm chasing
Yeah.
after you. And I wish you nothing but the best and all the success in the world. And continue to carry on this wonderful torch that you've been holding on to for not just the Phoenix metropolitan area, but for just JDM culture in and of itself. You're doing an amazing job, and you're an amazing human being. And I'm so glad that you went ahead and did the show. And I want to ask you a quick question before we go ahead and wrap it up
Sure.
tonight. And you know where I'm going with this because you know how it rolls. But Jay Fenning, what's car culture mean to you when you think of it all, my man?
What is car culture? I think car culture can be kind of going back to my supermarket example earlier. It can be loosely undefined. Um, it's something that's more tribal than anyone would really know unless you're in it. You know, you have the takeover kids, and one could argue that that's car culture. Most people would say it absolutely is not car culture, but to them it is. But I think it's to its nucleus. It's when the vehicle becomes the starting point, the icebreaker that brings people together, and then wherever you go from there is where you go from there.
Uh, your nucleus. Is that's Nacho Libre, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah.
I just
It's
watched that the other day too, but I
Oh,
didn't
it's
take it from
so
that.
good. I know, no, I
Yeah.
know. I could definitely tell you did not, but no, I feel like it's in your nucleus, and that might be the name of this episode tonight. I'm not gonna lie to you. Jay, it's been an absolute delight, and everything you've said, I couldn't agree with you more. Um, Everybody, if you're not following Jay, you need to go ahead and be following him on Instagram at Jay Fanning, and of course, you can go ahead and find at Hard Part. It's at Hard Parking
Hard parking
Podcast.
pod.
Yeah, and then of course your
It's just
Wednesday night
pod.
whiskeys, right?
Oh, One Drink Wednesday. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
that with my good friend Wes Tankersley. Hopefully we can still go live because we need more. We need
Yes.
more followers.
If you're not following, please follow. Follow so he can continue to go live. Like that's what we need to do.
Yep. Yeah, you don't even have to watch us on Wednesdays. It's fun, because we do. Um, we talk about a little bit of what's going on in our lives, a little bit of current events, and then we always do a Rotten Tomatoes game.
Okay.
And so we pick the category, and everybody watching, or they have to guess the critic score, guess the audience score. You can't cheat by looking it up. It doesn't matter if you haven't seen the movie, and we give shit away. Like we literally will give coasters away. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, what do I have in my drawer here? Oh, look, I have a auto cannon keychain. Then I got 10 of these things. Whoever wins, drop in the mail. We're shipping it to you. And it's just be kind of this fun thing that we do. And sometimes we actually do have people from the alcoholic industry as a guest on the show.
Right.
So, you never know.
That's one thing that I've always felt, even though it should be far apart, but I love the fact that like good fine liquors and good car culture have a really nice meeting point.
Yeah,
I think I think it's the refinement of it all, and I
could be.
really
Yeah,
dig it. The same thing can be said obviously with coffee and shit like that. We're having cars and coffees, but we're not having them at friggin' Dunkin' Donuts. You know what I'm saying? We're having them
that's
at
a good point.
404. Yeah. And everything. So, Jay, you've been an absolute gentleman, and I appreciate you, and I'm so happy you came on. Um, Everybody go ahead and check out all his stuff. And then, of course, you can go ahead and find us at Tormenting Tarmac. We're streaming on Apple and Spotify and all those places. And make sure that, hey, anybody out there in the Phoenix area, have Jay and I both be trending at the same time. That would be beautiful. That's all
Please.
I want. That's
Yes.
all I want. But on behalf of Jay, of course, my name is Jorge Aquino, and you've all been listening to the 151st installment of Tormenting Tarmac. It's the podcast where the enthusiast never dies. We'll see you guys later.